Hi guys, so recently I was talking about this pattern called Smugglers Cove, which was designed by Kay Hopkins, and she used two of our yarns, a Tough Love sock and a Party of 5 gradient colorway set to make this particular colorway shawl. Now this shawl is using a technique called the Mosaic knitting technique. It's a slip stitch technique. It looks like complex stranded color work, but it's not stranded color work. And in fact, it's probably even easier than knitting stranded color work, because in this case with the mosaic knitting, you only need to use one color per row, one color at a time, one color at any given time. So it should actually be pretty straightforward. But you know, I was really intrigued by this shawl. I was like, oh, maybe I can knit this shawl. And then I looked at the charts and then I was confused. So I've figured it out. So let me show you how the mosaic knitting stuff all works. So when you're looking at this shawl and you're looking at the photo of the shawl, it looks like the motif that's happening with the contrast colorway is kind of like a stranded color work. It looks like some kind of stranded color work, but it's not. But then you look at the charts and this also kind of looks like how stranded color work would be represented. So the black squares would be your contrast color, and then the white squares would be your main color. And so when you look at this, you would think, then you would knit 4 squares of, or 4 stitches of contrast color, 1 color of main color, 1 square of contrast color, and you just work that chart with 2 colors at the same time. But this is not how mosaic colorwork knitting works. Basically, this is a slip stitch technique. So you have to look at the very important information. The very important information is on this side of the chart, and it says either CC or MC, CC, MC. It's actually alternating in this case. But that indicates what color yarn you're actually using for this entire row. So CC is going to be the dark squares. So your CC color, you would knit these 4 stitches. And then anytime you see the color that you're not holding, so the main color, you're holding the CC color, you come up to the MC stitch, you just slip that stitch. You don't knit it. You don't use the other yarn color to knit it. You just slip it. And then the next stitch would be your CC color again. You knit that one, and then you slip one, you knit one, you slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one. And then on the purl side, or when you turn your work around, basically you work back across the row, and anytime you are knitting, anytime you're working a stitch that is the same color as what you're holding, you purl that stitch. If you come across the other color, the opposite color, then you just, again, slip that stitch. You slip that, on the purl side, you slip it with the yarn in front. On the knit side, you slip it with the yarn in back. So in fact, it looks like you're creating tiny little stranded floats across the back, because you're not knitting that slip stitch, but you're just tucking the yarn behind it. So on my little colorway swatch here, I have worked the first 2 rows of that particular chart. I'm going to work the next couple of rows so you can see sort of what I'm doing. I'm going to talk you through it. So on the next row, it's going to be the CC colorway. So I'm going to use my contrast colorway, which is the darker pink color. So I'm holding on to that one. And the first stitch is actually main color. So if the first stitch is a main color and I'm holding the CC color, I'm just going to slip this stitch. I'm not going to actually knit it. I'm going to slip that. And then the next 5 stitches are in the contrasting colorway. So then I'm just going to go ahead and knit those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the next stitch is going to be a main color stitch. So I don't knit that one, you just slip it. Just slip it from one needle to the other and then go on. The next stitches are 3 of contrasting. So 1, 2, 3. Then the next stitch is a main color, so I just slip that one. Then the next color is CC color. So I've just finished the knit section, and you can see that it looks like there's 2 different colors on the same row. You're having both the main color, that white color, and the contrast color, the dark pink. It looks like they're all on the same row, but in fact those light stitches were not knitted. Those are all just slipped. So eventually when you look at your swatch, those stitches are going to become, those slip stitches are going to become a little bit stretched, a little bit elongated. But when you look from far away, you're not going to notice that those stitches are elongated. You're just going to notice the motif that's happening. So now I'm going to turn my work to the purl side. And as I work back with this contrasting color, every time I see a stitch that is the same color as what I'm holding, I'm going to purl that. All the other stitches, the lighter color, the white stitches, I'm just going to slip those and ignore them basically. So there's a pink one, so we're going to purl that one. And then slip the light ones and then purl the dark ones. Okay, so then the next row is going to be the main color. So then I drop the CC color and I pick up the MC color. And this next row is going to be knit one of these, slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. Ah, I see, okay. Slip, knit, slip, knit. You slip all the ones that are not the light colored ones and knit, purl all the ones that are the same color as what you're holding. So when you are slipping those stitches that you don't need, you want to slip it as if to purl. So when you slip it as if to purl, the orientation of the stitches remains correct. If you slip it as if you were to knit, those stitches will end up being twisted on the back side. So, well, when you come back and knit them. So you do want to slip them purl-wise as you're working them. Okay, so you can see I've worked several rows of this chart pattern, and you can see the pattern is very geometric, it's very angular, but just very interesting things that you can do with a technique like this. It feels a little bit less wasteful than stranded knitting because the yarn I feel like is being featured more. There's not any long floats happening in the back, so there's not really much to catch on. So this is great for a shawl. You know, you're wrapping the shawl around. There's not going to be any long floats to catch your finger into as you're wrapping it around and wearing it. But yeah, there you go. There's a few rows of this chart pattern for the Smugglers Cove shawl. And yeah, hopefully you'll find this technique as easy as I did. This is not something I knew how to do until about 15 minutes ago. So I'm excited to be able to share this with you, this little technique, and I hope that you guys enjoy knitting the shawl and working with Mosaic knitting technique. Thanks. Okay, see you in the next one.